Do you trust your crypto assets to centralized exchanges that actively sell your private information and front run your trades? Would you like to buy and sell your assets without any middlemen, intermediaries, or robots? Do you like paying slippage, fees, and having the price go up as bots steal from you on low liquidity decentralized exchanges? The solution is nodemarket.io. Set your guaranteed buy or sell price. No middlemen, no slippage, no bots, ever. Buy or sell 1, 10, or even 10 million tokens, and you never have to worry. OTC trades are between you and the seller or buyer, guaranteed by audited smart contracts and no human middlemen. Nodemarket.io.
Are you tired of all the uneducated noise you're getting from the droves of YOLO meme coin peddling douchebag gurus out there trying to use you as their exit liquidity? Would you rather learn a competent university level set of skills that will guide you in managing and investing for the rest of your life? Join us 3 days a week at Digital Investor. Develop your knowledge of game theory, cognitive bias, macroeconomics, monetary theory, investment theory, psychology of the crowds, and more. For more info on Digital Investor and how it can help you, reach out at nickblacknext.com.
It's the same voice, Randy. It's no different. Same one. I just played them in different order, and that's it. No difference. So there we go. All right. Let's see. We'll hit some questions, some Q's and A's. We're going to talk about cognitive bias. That's going to be our main kind of story today, is cognitive bias. So we will talk about that. That's fun. I want to show people something. So let's do two things real quick, just before we even get started. Bitcoin 34.3. It just keeps wobbling. I think Bitcoin's going to trade sideways till we get some definitive news on an ETF. That is my gut. That's what my gut says. We'll see. That's what my gut feeling is. And the markets have been up like 4 days straight, so they probably cool off a little bit. All right, I want to show you guys something. Again, I don't know why people don't understand that there's a difference between trading in a DEX, trading on a centralized exchange, and trading in an OTC. Now, when I say OTC, let me caveat this. I mean code between two wallets. Wallet wants to buy or sell something, code to lock it up in an escrow, and a person that wants to buy or sell something on the other end through a wallet. So wallet, code, wallet. Okay, that's OTC. Here's what OTC is not. Login, personal credentials, a bunch of bullshitty KYC, email, give them all your personal data so that you can connect your wallet so that they can take your asset and send it to a third party that may or may not have been hacked in the past, that you don't have any control of, that's in some other entity. Could be anywhere, could be Norway, could be anywhere. Point is, then they do something, maybe, and charge a fee to the people that plugged you in to the thing where you pay the fee with the other dudes. They then maybe send your tokens back, maybe, with a fee attached, so that then these dudes in the middle, the second set of rent takers, although I guess there's a third set of rent takers because it's gone back. So it's gone from rent taker number 1 to rent taker number 2, back to rent taker number 1, where there's some fees, and then to the other wallet that KYC'd, email, personal information, all that. That's not fucking OTC. Okay? It's something else. It's interesting. It's not OTC. An OTC transaction is lean and elegant. It is a wallet. It is code. It is a wallet. Everything else is a bunch of rent-taking middlemen doing what they do. And that's okay on a centralized exchange, same thing. There's nothing wrong with that if you trust that. It's a lot of people to trust. How did that work out in the last couple of years? BlockFi didn't work out well. Luna, Terra, UST didn't work out well. Cryptopia, the exchange Cryptopia, didn't work out so well. Quadriga, didn't work out so well. Should we keep going? We don't even have, FTX, 3 Arrows, Celsius. Like, we can keep going down the list. This is all just stuff that crashed in the last 24 months because of middlemen, because of rent takers not honoring their fiduciary responsibility and mostly just stealing. All right. That's fine if you're okay with all that exposure. But there's a whole other side of it. Forget all of the bull crappiness of the humans involved. Let's look at the bull crappiness of the math involved. So, in order to explain this, why code wallet is better than even a DEX. What's a DEX situation? Wallet, order book based on whatever sloppy amount of liquidity there may or may not be, the bots that are front running you, the fees that you will pay on top of the slippage that you will incur on top of, like, you see where this goes. If it's an anemic market, you're basically always with a DEX. You're not only using a crappy limit order, not even really a limit order, because if you just do a fire and forget swap, that's like a market order with robots, with slippage that increases, by the way, because your quoted slippage is never the actual slippage. So as an example, this morning I was banging around. Hypercycle is $1.01. Let's look and see where and how. Well, it's $1.02 in Ethereum. It's $1 on, so that's pretty tight. That's pretty tight. Okay, so it's $1.02 if you want the Ethereum one, which if you're getting the token, get the Ethereum one right now. Well, you can get the Binance one if you're just looking to fill node licenses, but I'm not messing with Binance. So the Ethereum token's $1.02. Sounds fair, right? $1.02. If you go over, I just want to show you something. If you go to Node Market, you go to Hypercycle, there is an order. Someone put one out there. I mean, there's all sorts of them, but there was one that was listed a little while ago, unless it got taken. Certainly it didn't. Let me see. Let's go to the exchange. Let's go to recent listings. There was one for 100,000 tokens. Yeah. Okay, let's see if it's still there. Maybe it got racked. Active listings. Oh, someone might have knocked it. Okay, someone might have grabbed it. Anyway, that was, let's go back to it so you can see it for the sake of this argument. So it was recent, let me see. Last sales, no, it should still be out there. Because there was a 10,000er that was $1. There was a recent listing, so it's 100,000. Okay, so it's for $1.02. All right, so that's 100,000. It's going to cost you 102,000 bucks. Okay, you're like, oh man, so that's $1.02 and change, right? And we know the price is about $1.02. Okay, but if you go to DEX tools, you have to do the math correctly. If you wanted those 100,000 tokens, let's reset this just so it's current. You're going to incur a fair amount of slippage, and this is not a big transaction. It's actually kind of pretty small. So let's go. Let's reset this. Hypercycle, let's do the same 100,000. Same 100,000 tokens. So you're going to hit minimum before you even get started. You're going to hit 11. Sorry. It's being weird. Hold on. Okay, so there's 100,000. You're going to hit 11. You're going to hit about 12% before fees. Before fees. On MetaMask, your slippage plus fees is over 20% because the same 100,000 tokens, which would cost you $102,000, would cost you here before fees and robots. You're going to be at 112,000 plus fees, plus Ethereum fees. So you're going to have the exchange fees plus the Ethereum fees. So you're going to be at about 114, 115K. So there's already 15%, 15,000 bucks you lit on fire. And you go do that same transactions on MetaMask, which fishes out the offer to a bunch of any swap platform it deals with. You're at 21% slippage. I took a screenshot of it and I put it in one of the chats. So now you're at $122 or $123,000 for your 100,000 tokens. Okay, you can't fill big orders on anemic supply. So it's not so simple as looking at the price to compare. Now, my guess, they might have pulled that order off and repriced it because I don't see it. I don't see that order when I click into active listings. So my guess is they pulled that order. They had one that cracked for 10,000 yesterday. Let's see. Okay, 102. Yeah, here's 100,000. Yeah. So that was. No, you don't want to cancel it. I don't even know why it lets me do that. List. I'm not sure what's going on. It doesn't have a buyer. So maybe they canceled that order. Anyway, point is that you could have this morning basically put 15K in your pocket by simply making an even at the money transaction, OTC, because there's no people in the middle and there's no bots in the middle. See, on this transaction, this isn't what the actual price is. As you start to get filled, because this is an anemic book, as you start to get filled, you're going to get beat up. Just look at the average trades, 69, 130, 20. None of these are big. 1,000, that's barely over a node, right? So you start realizing, wow, any kind of real size transactions are going to bully the price around. Look, we're already in the 105, 104 range. Nickel and dime, people, man. Anyway, DEXs are so stupid, but it is what it is. So I would just urge you, it makes a difference what platform you're trading on. You can't put, it would be helpful to put commas on the numbers in Node Market. All right? Tell Brandon, put commas. Brandon, let's get some commas. Anyway, the point to all this is, if you're going to buy and sell, you have three options. You can go to a centralized exchange, which there's one, which I think MEXC. Not everyone can use it, but for those who can, very low liquidity. It's not much better than a DEX. You can go to the DEXs. Okay, you can get an idea of the DEXs by going to MetaMask and setting up a swap order and looking at what those prices are. So that's where you start, right? Because pretty much everybody can get a MetaMask account. Well, everybody. I don't think there's anybody that can't get a MetaMask wallet. So you set up the trade there and you look at it first. Then you go and look everywhere else, right? Yay, comma's coming. We're going to get that comma drama. You go and look everywhere else. You go and look on the DEX. You go to Uniswap. You can even just go directly to Uniswap and look at it. But look at this. Okay, see, here's another example. It's like so obvious. God. So here, the price just went up to $1.04. Why did it go up to $1.04? Because someone bought like not many tokens, man. Look, a buy of not even 5,000 tokens jacked the price to $1.04. I mean, just think how anemic this is. So if you're buying, okay, maybe you go here. Okay, cool. If you're selling, why on earth would you sell against this? Because one, you can't you can't get an order filled. It says 9%. Bullshit. If you tried to go back or forth to either of these, look, just swapping the order around, going from Ethereum, you're at 13%. And I guarantee you, once you put that order in, you ain't at 13%. So anything over a few thousand tokens, you need to be doing code-based OTC transactions. And if you want to use Node Market, cool. And if you don't, also cool. Go use another OTC. Oh, wait, there isn't one. Yeah, he got front run by bots, right? So that's another thing. We could go into this all day. Brandon's really a lot better at it than I am. But look, as you see, there's a bunch of like little baby front run trades that come in. He's getting, oh God, it's just, it's so, I hope people do some homework. That's all I hope. All right. Let's see. What else is going on? Okay. If there's any other kinds of questions, let's see. So there's not 5,000. No, not really. Well, what we're doing, Sam, is we're building the other side of it right now. So we're doing a lot of back end work. We want to have both sides where people are not only making bids to sell, but also bids to buy. So for instance, I could sell 100,000 hypercycle tokens for $1. I could also sell 100,000 USDT to be paid in terms of hypercycle. Does that make sense? That's all coming, but it's taking a fair amount of plumbing. So we're working on the plumbing right now. We realize that's something that doesn't really exist on the OTC side. They don't have fully developed order books. And the only way to do that is to do what we call an ordered book, which is slightly different. And it's a book of both sides of a token, the buy and sell orders. But on the buy side, it's basically you're offering to sell stablecoin and get paid in the other one. Yeah. So that's where it is right now. And there's been, also this has only been running less than 2 weeks. So it's going to take a while. You also have, with Hypercycle specifically, you have a lot of people who are only getting tokens because they want to put them in node licenses, which makes sense because there's a shortage of tokens. And there will be a shortage of tokens for the foreseeable future. So it makes sense that a lot of people aren't on the selling side, which is why when you go to the DEXs and you try to buy, you get nuked. How the front running works is basically bots will jump in front of you on an order. It's like this. It's like you yell down the street, hey, I want to buy 10 donuts. And then the seller, the donut guy goes, okay, they're $1 a piece. You're like, sweet. And then someone up there right by the donut guy goes, well, I'll buy those donuts right now for $1.02. And he's like, okay, here. And then you get there and he says, hey, these donuts, if you want those 10 donuts, they're now $1.10 each. And you're like, what? You just told me they were $1. Yeah, they were $1 when you were down the street, bro. But when you walked up the street, this guy bought them all. Now he's going to sell them back to you and they're $1.10 each. You're like, crap. That's front running. Now that's a very layman's version of it, but that's essentially what's happening. It's the same thing with, kind of what high frequency trading is. You just front run trades by a fraction of a second. And if you have enough money, enough liquidity pushing into a high liquid asset, you can do it. In low liquid assets, you don't have a choice. So this is like the low kind of scummy version. And it's all done by bots. There's no humans involved. It's bots that are set up to take advantage of these orders and take little bitty snippets of it out from underneath you. Can I enter an order to buy at a limit price? Well, everything's a limit order with an OTC trade. And I just explained that that's what we're building right now. So that's yes. So no, not this second, because that doesn't exist anywhere. We're building that thing that doesn't exist anywhere in any OTC market. But these things take a lot of development time. I told you guys the sad apocryphal story of Rhythm and Hughes, the company that did all the VFX for The Life of Pi, which won an Oscar. Do you guys remember? They won an Oscar for visual effects, and they were already bankrupt because about a month or two into the VFX work for the film, one of the executives, some like 29-year-old that doesn't know shit about shit, he said, hey, can you guys make it be raining the whole time? And he's like, what? Yeah, can you just make it be raining? Like, make it be raining in the whole film? Just make it be raining. Yeah, but like on the boat, just make it be raining. He's like, do you understand how complicated that is? And he's like, yeah, but we just want it to be raining. And that bankrupted that company. So sometimes what seems like a little bitty thing to us, to a developer it's not a little bitty thing. So there you go. Yeah, anyway, let's see. Active listings. Did he relist? Okay, so he relisted. Yay. So it was relisted at, so we'll go active listings. Yeah, so I guess it was relisted at I don't see it. Oh, yeah. Okay. So it's relisted. So you could buy it right now. Yay. So it's still 102. And then if you go to the DEX, it's, well, currently not 102, is it? It is more. It's more. It's more than 102. You guys are going to see a huge, drawdown on these tokens. Literally the second that people can marry tokens to the licenses. When that token when the 1155, when the hypershare token comes out, and you can take your tokens and fuse them, again, less than a master. You can do it with a master node license and 524,288 tokens, which, by the way, you cannot buy. It's not possible. Do the math on that. You want to see something stupid? Here. 524,288. They don't have commas either, Beth. Just so you're saying, this is DEX tools, and they also don't have commas. I'm just saying. If you're going from hypercycle, it says the price impact is 38%, but we now know that's bullshit, and the price impact is going to be somewhere around 50 or 60%. But swap that out as a purchase, 32%. So you're 32% on $500,000. Anyone? This is before, remember, this is before fees. It's already at $1.05, by the way. This is before fees. This is before bots. I guarantee you this order won't even fill. You cannot get this order filled. Look at it, and got all weird. See, it even jacked it down. That's if you can't even get this order filled. Look, it changes the number. Yeah, bullshit. There's no way that if it's showing you 40%, Brandon will tell you, anybody will tell you that's indexes, none of that's getting filled. Zero. Well, not zero, some, but you'll just get gutted. That's going to be that $524,000, let's call it $550,000 transaction is going to cost you $800,000. Anybody here want to spend $800 on $524,000 worth of tokens? Raise your hand. I'll go sell kidneys and get you your tokens. Like, when you're dealing with illiquid assets on anemic markets that people tend to want to hoard, this is what you see. This is how you can explain the behavior in the early crypto space and how a token like Bitcoin can go from 2 cents to $69,000. You think, well, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense until you get a mixture of human behavior and math and look at those price impacts. Yeah, it's down. It's like real little. And this is, by the way, it's still not factoring all the realities of a DEX trade. A DEX trade is like a sloppy market order. Like you go to Coinbase, do a market order. Fees are higher and people front run it. Just think about it. If everybody in the room knows you want to buy something, or everybody in the room knows you want to sell something, they can front run you and make your life miserable. Whew. Anyway, I just thought it was important to talk about this because I see a lot of, it's just a lack of education. It's not like anything bad. I mean, but it'll cost you a lot of money. And one of the reasons people get beat up in the crypto space, it's not just the crypto space, it's like the greater investment space, is they just don't understand the tools. And so understanding the tools helps you figure out like, okay, what the hell's actually going on? Does that make sense? And any of you guys can go look at this and play around with it, and I urge you to do so. Go set up these trades. You can go to MetaMask. You can go right now. Matter of fact, someone in the chat, someone here, please go to MetaMask, set up a swap transaction. You don't have to have money in the wallet to do this. You can set up the transaction. Go between USDT and Hypercycle. And I want you to look at what a swap would be to end up with 100,000 Hypercycle tokens from USDT, and then look at the price effects from going from 524,288. So in order to get to that, so if you wanted to buy a masternode's worth of tokens, or if you just wanted to buy 100K, and you start to see like, oh God, you can't get any of these orders filled, or the price impact is so ridiculous. And by the way, I mean, you're just going to crash transaction after transaction because there's not enough liquidity to fill these orders. So the only way to do it is to source it through humans. Do you think most of the transactions at Coinbase are front-facing or out the back door in some OTC function? What do you think? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Remember that? Ferris Bueller? It's awesome. Ferrari? I think it was dope. Most of Coinbase's transactions are out the back door in their OTC. It's not some shit running in a Discord or in a Telegram group or anything like you. Give it to Susan. Susan will hold it. No. Yep, it's all back door, bros. Bro Cephas, it's all back door. And which means it's a over-the-counter transaction. And not OTC is OTC. Not all OTC transactions are actual. You got to figure out what is your counterparty risk. You got to understand counterparty risk. If I'm doing a transaction at Node Market, and yes, this is a blatant ad, I'm doing a transaction with another human, and code is the only thing in the middle, not another group or two other groups or three other groups of people. That's bullshit. That is why we built this, so that two humans could come and do commerce with no assholes in the middle. 525. Yeah, look at that. Frank, God. 525,000 USDT would get you 300,000 Hypercycle. By the way, that's before fees and robots, because I promise you that transaction doesn't fill. Ain't happening. So just know your tools. If you know your tools and you understand your counterparty risk. Oh, unrelated, but would anybody here actually do business with, they're gonna try to relaunch FTX. That's what they're saying. Would anybody here set up an account and do business with FTX, FTX2, FTX the sequel? Certainly, I would hope not. I don't know. Eesh. I know Rick and Morty wouldn't. Well, Morty might, but Rick won't. Rick won't let him do that. Like, come on. Yeah, right? Like, no. Just like straight up no. And like even the fact that they're propositioning that, it kind of gets under my skin. Yeah, only if we get Sam back. Well, in 15 to 20 years. Oh, wait, in the federal system, it's in months. In 225 to 360 months, he'll get another bite at the apple. Oh, God. Is there some cost to this OTC? Just the transaction fee. Just the transaction fee in Ethereum. So it's whatever. It's just a wallet-to-wallet transfer. That's the whole thing. That's what I'm trying to explain is there's no central authorities, mediators, rent takers, or third parties. It's just a piece of code in the middle, a smart contract, that when you want to sell something, it takes those tokens and holds them. And the only way they can be unlocked is if either you cancel the transaction or someone else buys the transaction by swapping out your tokens for whatever tokens you want to receive in payment. Yeah, 2.5%. So that's how it works. So there's just a piece of code in the middle. No. Yay. All right. Cool. Let's switch gears now and let's talk about, we do have I'm not going to front run. I'm going to announce an announcement. Tomorrow, Brandon and I will talk. We're going to do like a little Halloween promotion on Halloween Day promotion. And I'll just give you a hint. It will have to do with hypercycle node licenses, and it will have to do with node market node licenses. There'll be some node on node action. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. All right, let us switch gears. Let's get into the classroom phase. We got to talk about cognitive bias. I'm going to go through all 25. I mentioned a bunch of cognitive biases on a regular basis and how important it is that we kind of talk about them, but sometimes we need to delve a little bit broader. We're gonna back up, go to 10,000 feet, and I'm gonna lay out 25, which seem like right now the kind of most prevalent 25 cognitive biases that act on us. So let's do some of that.
Hello. You're late.
You're bad at math, but I'm giving you an A+ in confidence.
Just doing what I gotta do.
Extra credit.
I was watching such a great Rick and Morty yesterday. Have you guys seen the Purge one where they purge? Season 2, episode 9. Oh, so good. And then the one where he purposely gets locked up just so he can, whatever. Anyway, doesn't matter. There's a lot of interesting cognitive bias stuff going on in that show, by the way. It's pretty informative. Only MetaMask wallet. Can Coinbase wallet be connected? Now listen, Coinbase wallet is something that Coinbase bought. It's a Web3 wallet that interacts with the Ethereum network and several others. I would only be using MetaMask. I just not had success with Coinbase wallet, but yeah, I think you can use Coinbase wallet. You can use any compliant Ethereum-based wallet stuff. Anyway, there you go. Okay, let's get back to the guts of it. So when we are talking cognitive bias, let's just go broad and talk about cognitive bias and its effects on our daily lives. So I would urge everyone to just kind of think for the next 15 minutes or so. Let's just think about thinking. All right, let's don't forget about money, forget about crypto, forget about all this stuff. Let's just focus on the act of thinking and what can influence us. And just as a quick kind of reminder, when you're thinking cognitive bias, okay, essentially game theory is how we make decisions. It's the framework for decision making. All right. And then cognitive bias are the things that get in the way. Now, these two things together, understanding cognitive bias and having a game theoretical mindset, that gives us a good critical thinking system, a formula for kind of behavior, right? And for critical thinking, you think, okay, analysis, yes. Good communication, yes. Open-mindedness, yes. Problem solving, yes. Creativity, yes. If we have these things, then we are obviously paying attention to our cognitive biases, which are the tendencies to think in certain ways that lead us to systematic deviations from a standard of rationality or sound judgment. Again, like why do we make the decisions we make? And then we are using game theory, which is the study of mathematical models of strategic interaction between rational decision makers, SIPG. So strategic interactions or interdependencies between players in a game. And this has applications like all over social science and logic and computer science and evolutionary biology and biology in general, and just like some over histories and behavioral psychology and also, very, very overtly obvious. So, but what can get in the way and derail a lot of people, even a lot of really intelligent people, is that they're not thinking about the world of cognitive bias, these systematic patterns of deviation. Right? And again, it's a deviation from rational thought. That's what cognitive bias is. And whether it's your, the way you were raised or your social environment and all that, it's a combination of a lot of things, and the way you process information and all this. Point is, it still creates systematic patterns of deviation from rational thought, rational judgment. So the 25 most critical biases that kind of unconsciously or subconsciously influence our decisions: confirmation bias, anchoring bias, hindsight bias. I'm not just going to read through the list. We'll talk about them. Availability heuristic, self-serving bias, status quo bias, negativity bias, the bandwagon effect, Dunning-Kruger effect, the endowment effect, framing effect, recency illusion, the gambler's fallacy, halo effect, optimism and pessimism bias. They work together. They're a team. Sunk cost fallacy, authority bias, placebo effect, zero risk bias, overconfidence effect, normalcy bias, blind spot bias, just world hypothesis, and the base rate fallacy. Say that's a damn mouthful of cognitive problems. Yes, the words on the notes are tripping me. I know. Listen, AI artwork is good, but we're not quite there yet. At least, listen, be happy that they got bias correct. It's getting better. There's behind him is the piloto bias. Anyway, God. So there we go. Let's talk about these biases first. And as I talk about them, to let me know that you're even paying attention, because listen, we're doing this show for the 6 or 8 of you that are paying attention. Everyone else, well, I don't know. As we talk about each one, I want you just to write the bias in the chat. Just simply write it. So first is confirmation bias. Let's see it. See how many people are actually paying attention. This is the tendency to search for, to interpret, to remember information in a way that tends to confirm our pre-existing beliefs. So this is why we might tend to read news sources or align ourselves with groups that have the same views as we already have. This is very dangerous. It's usually confirmation bias. That's the echo chamber. That's like the first one everybody usually talks about, because it is so obvious. It affects us so obviously. Like, I know this bias is on me. I won't, other than the news, I won't go into any chats or anything if I see a bunch of pro Solana people, pro FTX people, pro Dogecoin people, pro Pepe people, because I know they're all full of shit. Now, they're not all full of shit. There might be somebody somewhere in those groups with an IQ higher than a frog, but I doubt it. Now, that's all confirmation bias. In a sense, it's the reverse of it. I'm staying away from a group because I'm labeling them and I'm judging them as being, technically stupid. I still believe they're technically stupid. But anyway, that's confirmation bias. That's cognitive bias number one. Anchoring bias. Let's go into anchoring bias now. Anchoring bias. This is the first piece of information we hear becomes the anchor against which we evaluate all the other information we hear. You guys, anybody that's read deep into primacy versus recency discussions, that's anchoring bias really comes in. It's also a big part of the sales process, right? Finding out if someone is more primacy versus someone is more recency based in their decision making, and you can script a sales process. Good car salesmen figure out primacy and recency in a discussion. They also figure out if you're a maximizer or a satisficer. Those are two other kinds of analysis method which people are, and they tend towards one or the other. And you figure that out. You can craft your sales pitch throughout the sales pitch to people that are primacy or recency based and maximizer satisficers. Anyway, I'm going to really go deep into sales. But the first piece of information we hear becomes the anchor against which all other information is filtered. For instance, like if you see a shirt priced at a store and it's $100, and then you see a similar one for 50, you're likely to see that second one as a really good deal. Also, if you see that second shirt for $10, you go, wait, something's not right. something sketchy here, right? Like you see a pair of Gucci shoes and they're $900 online, and then you go to a store and they're 500. You're like, hell yeah, that's $400 off. If you see them at 100, you're like, wait a minute, these are knockoffs. Yeah, guess what? Almost like 85% of all the Gucci's in circulation are knockoffs. And you know where they come from? They come from Gucci, because Gucci does most of their business through knockoffs. Did you know that? It's like the main part of their revenue is selling knockoffs that are not knockoffs. They're just right out the back door of Gucci. It's like a whole thing. Anyway, next, hindsight bias. You know, like looking backwards. Hindsight bias. Have you ever thought, oh, I knew it. I knew it. You admit how many people had hindsight bias about Bitcoin. I knew it was going to go up. Bullshit. No, you didn't. Or you would have bought a ton of it. Hindsight bias. And this is the, I knew it all along. Of course, so obvious. And this is after an event has occurred. Hindsight bias kicks in, and it gives us all this false sense of predictability. Why do you think so many people do technical analysis? And they're so like, oh no, for sure. No, not for sure. You're only for sure because you're looking backwards. So this whole, I knew it all along, this hindsight bias, it gives you a false sense of the predictability of things. And it can be very detrimental in decision-making processes moving forward. It can have you over-relying on old information. Yeah, I should have bought more hypercycle when I could buy it at 22. Yeah, that's a kind of weird regret. But if you were like, it would be like, I knew hypercycle was going to be $1. I knew hypercycle. I mean, there was a few people saying that. Sorry, just had to clear my throat from being obvious. Anyway, like, I mean, math. Okay, now we're going to talk about, this is going to be a tough one for you guys to spell. The availability heuristic. Availability heuristic. You guys understand heuristics, like these kind of pattern models that the brain uses to streamline decision making. Anyway, those are like heuristics. Anyway, this is the availability heuristic. We tend to overestimate the importance of information that's readily available, typically due to our recent exposure. Remember, we were talking about primacy and recency a second ago. Cruising, you got it. I think heuribastic. Yeah, you definitely got it. You butchered it, my friend. In hindsight, I should have known that you would have butchered the word heuristic. Anyway, it's a weird one. Anyway, so we overestimate the importance of readily available information. We do this due to the recent exposure of that information. And it's why a rare event like a plane crash can be perceived as more common than it is. Or like some very weird event like Mount St. Helens eruption. Oh my gosh. Because you see 24 articles about it, you hear it over and over, you think, oh, this happens all the time. Nope. No, it's like once every like 4,000 years. But still, it's like, or like Mount Vesuvius, right? You study it for a month straight in your history class, and then it's like, oh, it's all Vesuvius. These things happen. No, that's overestimating the importance of information simply because you're exposed to it over and over and over. Yeah, spellings. Hey, listen, you guys don't have to be good at spelling to succeed in investing, thankfully. Just make sure your math is on point. Self-serving bias. Self-serving bias. In the scenario of the self-serving bias, we attribute positive events to our character, like, oh, that was me, but negative events to external factors. This protects your self-esteem, and it hinders personal growth. I'll give you an example. This is why I told you, we talked about this yesterday, why I don't give any advice or assistance to family members. Really, and mostly friends either. They're like, what should I do? I'm like, you should do nothing. Either go do the research or F off. And here's why. Because if you tell somebody to do some investment thing and they do it and it succeeds, self-serving bias kicks in. They tell everyone how smart they are. They tell everyone, look what I did. Right? They won. We won. If the investment goes the wrong way, they tell everyone what you did. Oh, Nick told me to get this and it crashed. Nick said this. Nick said, I don't want to hear that bull crap. So I just don't help family members and I don't help friends. If they don't want to do the work, I mean, I barely do it with you guys. I try to give you guys the same tools that I use, but self-serving bias. If you fall, this is also about taking responsibility. If you want to grow as an individual, just take responsibility. Luck isn't a strategy. Like if you pick the lottery, you didn't win any. I mean, you end up with currency units, but you didn't do anything other than be lucky. Be lucky is not strategy. You can't take responsibility for that. And then when it doesn't work out, you blame some school teacher in Idaho because they're the ones that always win, or like nurses. Anyway, status quo bias. Status quo bias. See if people are going to get this one right. But anyway, status quo bias. People prefer things to stay the same. They want to maintain status quo, right? This bias can prevent us from accepting change or taking risks. You should all see this all over the place when it has to do with AI. Well, and crypto assets as well. Status quo bias. Why would we do that when we can just do this? The perfect example, like in the early days of the internet. Why would I send an email? It's so much easier to go and buy a pen, go buy paper, go buy stamps, go buy an envelope, write a letter by hand, make mistakes, start over, write a letter, finish the letter, fold it, put it in an envelope, write the address, write my return address, put a stamp on it. See how easy it is to send a letter? Why on earth would I want to use email? I don't know, Grandma. When you say it like that, I guess you're right. Email does sound ridiculous. Status quo bias. All right. It also tends to prevent people from taking risks. And a certain amount of risk is the whole point of this existence. Right? Like, that's why everybody is here. A certain amount of risk. All right. Anyway, negativity bias. This is an easy one. Negative events have a more significant impact on our psychological state than positive events. And this is evolutionary, and it keeps us like alive. The negative events in our lives need to have a big giant exclamation mark, right? And this can lead to sometimes an overly pessimistic worldview. Now, I will say this, negativity bias does tend to improve personal performance to an extent. And I mean, you want to remember your failures, not so much that it affects you moving forward, but that you learn something from them. So negativity bias, well, oh gosh, there's some coach that said, like, you show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser. Right? Like, you think, oh, that sounds awful. Well, not really. You don't want to celebrate. You don't want to beat yourself up over a loss, but you sure want to pay attention to it. Right? Let's see. I still have your report from Digital Heavyweights. These are the same. Well, this is a list that I did today based on the statistical top 25. They may not be the top 25 related to the crypto market. That's really what that's what the document we did that's in the digital. By the way, anybody that doesn't understand, the digital investor has a whole back end with a bunch of tools. It's not just those shows. There's like a whole back end and a bunch of tools and all that kind of cool stuff. Anyway. All right. Bandwagon effect. Let's talk about the bandwagon effect. This is an easy one. It's in the name. It is the tendency to do things because others are doing those things. It is the essence of peer pressure. That's the bandwagon effect. Peer pressure, bro. Got that peer pressure, bro. All right. Let's talk Dunning-Kruger. People throw this one around a lot. It gets a little bit sloppy. This is the bias. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And it's the bias that causes less competent people to overestimate their abilities and more competent people to underestimate their capabilities. Does that make sense? It's also part of it is injury through intelligence, where people that are a little bit intelligent on some things estimate that they are really intelligent on lots of things, and that's a recipe for disaster. You see it, it's all over the place. You don't have to, if you throw a rock in any direction, it will hit someone. Yeah. The Freddy Krueger effect, Brian, is slightly different. And that is you go to sleep and this son of a bitch cuts you to ribbons in your sleep. And turns out if you die in your sleep, you die in real life in Freddy Krueger world. Freddy Krueger's scary because you can't really get away from him. You got to really control your dreams. Anyway, that's Dunning-Kruger. Don't be an overestimator. You're better off being a more competent individual that underestimates your abilities than the reverse. Injury through intelligence is dangerous, like giving a loaded gun to a monkey. Anyway, the endowment effect. The endowment effect. This is that people tend to overvalue something just because they own it. Like once you own it, like, oh man, this thing, like, okay, stop. Boy, I'll tell you where you see this. When someone has a newborn baby, this is the only, look how smart he is. He's 0. He's 0 years old. He's not a genius yet. Let's wait till he's doing Rubik's Cubes at age 1, okay? Before we put the prodigy hat. Every goddamn parent puts the prodigy hat on their newborn. Stop it. But this goes for things too, things and stuff. You start becoming emotionally invested in the stuff that you own. It is what it is. Framing effect. Here's our next one, the framing effect. The way information is presented, the way it's framed, can significantly affect our decisions. So here's an example that we all see in the store all the time. 90% fat-free butter. That's better on the shelf than 10% fat butter. You're like, oh, wait, what? Same information, framing effect. Okay. I feel like when someone's trying to set you up on a date, they're like, oh no, man, she's really cool or he's really cool. So funny. So good. Life of the party. You're like, oh, wait. Hold on. Let's dial this back. Anyway, recency illusion. Chance, you might have a prodigy. You might have a nose-picking prodigy. The recency illusion. We tend to think that things we've noticed recently are a new trend. Recency illusion. Okay, and you'll notice that a lot of these kind of cross-pollinate. There's some of these that kind of come up a few times, but they have specific outcomes. So they are distinctions with differences. The gambler's fallacy. Here's one, the gambler's fallacy. This is the belief that if something happens frequently during some time period, then it must happen less frequently in a future time period, like expecting a coin to land heads after several tails. So I flip 25 times tails, it's gotta be heads. No, it's not gotta be. And by the way, coin flipping is not 50%. They did some research on this. I just watched a video on this, but the research is actually, there's nearly a 1% bias towards the heads side. It has to do with the weight of the coin. But basically, if you have the heads up and you flip it, there is about a 1% higher likelihood, so about 50.8%, that it's going to land the same way as it was facing up when you flipped it. And they've done, I think that last study was like 350 or 375,000 flips, a bunch of people collecting the data. So flipping a coin is not even 50-50. But anyway, which means the gambler's fallacy is even wrong on coin flipping. Anyway, but it's the belief that if something happens frequently during some time period, it will happen less frequently in some future similar time period. So well, this is the whole reason that the roulette table lures people in. They say, oh, it's red. It's got to go black. It's got to go black. No, it does not. It's always the probabilities are always the same every time, unless they're loaded table. That's different. Halo effect. Let's talk halo effect. The halo effect. You guys know this one. If you see one person positively in one light, that positive judgment will spill over to other areas. So considering like someone who's really pretty as being really smart. Oh, they're so pretty, therefore they should be smart. No, that is not always the case, as it turns out. or somebody that you really like, giving you advice in things that they may not be experts at. So I'm going to give you an example. I am very good at math and I understand game theory really well. I would not be the person to ask for, say, dating advice or things of that nature, or like attending to your lawn, anything to do with cars. I mean, the driving side, yes. The mechanic side, I can't help you. If you were to assume that because I'm good at investing and good at money, that means that I'm good at other things, that would be the halo effect. And you would have a terrible lawn, a car that doesn't start, and a destroyed relationship. So I'm just going to give you those. Don't fall to the halo effect. Optimism bias. Well, now we have two, optimism and pessimism bias. Remember, they're running buddies. Overestimating the likelihood of positive outcomes. Optimism bias. Remember, you always reduce it to math. What's the pessimism bias? Well, that's the other half of it. The opposite of optimism bias. This is where one overestimates the likelihood of negative outcomes and then usually follows the rage quit. You've seen people rage quit out of crypto. They always go online. I'm out. Here's the two things you see. One dude's like, I'm selling all of it. I hate you, this project. I'm selling. Okay, thanks for telling us. You're not selling, or you wouldn't be here talking about it. But even if you were, here come the next messages. The responses are, sell all of it. I'll buy your bags. Right. Because really, really rich, successful people are waiting to buy your bags. That's so stupid. Oh, and they're chatting about it. I'll buy your bags, you tissue paper handed, because I'm diamond handed. I'm never selling. I'm only buying. I have an unlimited wallet to buy and never sell because I don't sell. I have diamond hands. Really? How do you drive your car, stupid, if you have diamond hands? You can't touch any buttons. You just have hands that are just like this all the time from all that buying. Get off the gas. Anyway, that's optimism and pessimism bias. Yeah, Gucci. I'll buy your Gucci bags. Exactly. Sunk cost fallacy. Sunk cost fallacy. We hear this one all the time. And this is, the more that you invest in something, the harder it becomes to abandon it, even if it's the right choice. I tell people all the time, halo effect. Yeah, Mary, you nailed it. Sunk cost fallacy. So I see this when I'm trying to tell clients to take profit, and they're like, no, I don't want to. Like, what do you mean you don't want to do it? No, just get out, take some profit. Or especially when something's going back down, but they've still locked in a lot of profit. And they're like, it's going down. It's time to get out. It's going down. It's time to get out. The news has changed. The information has changed. Everybody's been fired or gone to prison or whatever. Like, don't own the FTT or the Luna token right now, stupid. Like, it's over with. No, I don't want, because I've lost. You've only lost when it gets to zero, buddy. All right? Just take the tax harvest. Anyway, authority bias. And I'm going to wrap these last ones up pretty quick. We'll get through them. Authority bias. This is number 18, by the way, for those of you keeping track. We tend to believe that authoritative figures, that their opinions, that their information is more valuable. We weight it higher, even if they're dead wrong. Right? So you have two individuals, and one of them gives you some advice on the Rangers game. Some guy in the crowd who's been studying baseball his whole life, by the way, he might actually be a genius. He might be the 1-year-old that was doing the Rubik's Cube and like Euclidean geometry. And then you have the manager for the team. Okay, we believe the manager, he's an authoritative figure. We believe what he says over what someone in the crowd says. That's not safe. You have to take individuals at their individual skill set. You got to be very careful. I learned this talking to hedge fund managers. They are a bunch of flipping morons. I've met a handful of, like, I'd say high money, over $1 billion. And I've not been impressed. That sounds bad. but I can say in a blanket statement, I have not been impressed. I have been underwhelmed, and that is not good. Anyway, authority bias. Placebo effect. This is easy. Placebo effect. And that's thinking that something will have an effect on you, like, a sugar pill or some weird remedy. Because, now the power, we're not going to get into a whole thing about the power of like personal healing and all this kind of stuff. But, if you believe that something will have an effect on you, it does cause things to have an effect. I'll tell you what does have an effect on you, and that is creating good habits, good structure, lists, be brilliant at the basics. And if you're brilliant at the basics, all of those little things feed off of each other. And then it's no longer a placebo effect. And I think it's better to generally have a positive outlook than to have a negative outlook. Although I know some people that just are like career short sellers and they do make good money, but I feel like they're miserable. But anyway, placebo effect. And also, don't shoot down someone else's placebo effect. This is the other side of it. Don't be a dick. If you know someone's taking the proverbial sugar pill, but it's working and their life is better and they're happier, keep your goddamn mouth shut. Let them enjoy it. What are you stealing away? It's like, that's just a placebo, Steve. That's not real. It feels real. Well, it's not real. Well, it's not real now, is it? God damn it. No, let them have that. It doesn't detract from your happiness, the fact that someone else has faux placebo happiness. If they're happy, they're happy. Like, let them ride the wave of stupid, right? Like, who cares? Anyway, zero risk bias. Well, we love certainty, even if it's not the best option. So we'll often take a smaller reward if it's guaranteed, like 5% in Fed funds, or money market, grabbing 5%, or hell, take your USDC, go park it on Coinbase, take that 5%. Well, that same USDC right now in Cardano is paying 7% and change a year. Plus you have the upshot of it. Why would you not do that? Well, I want the guaranteed, right? But if you look at it, it's not really guaranteed. It's a failed assumption because the underlying math is wrong, because the government can print money. But anyway, it's the perception that you'll take that guaranteed smaller reward over larger and uncertain one. And I will say this, everybody is going to face this as you guys expand your balance sheets. I'll tell you right now, I don't take the risks I took 5 years ago. Like, you go to 2017, the kind of risks I would take, I hit a 128x that year on my whole portfolio. 128x, 12,800%. I'm not taking those same risks now. Now, it may look to an outside observer that I am, that like, you're got 55% of your portfolio in AI. That seems risky. Only it doesn't seem risky to me because I'm entrenched in the space and feels like the fair amount of risk. So anyway, zero risk bias. Certainty is not always certainty. And these other biases can give you certainty even when maybe you should not have it. Overconfidence effect, which makes sense. It goes right after the zero risk bias. We tend to overestimate our abilities. All right. If you're going to do one or the other, I would urge you to underestimate your abilities, right? Go into every room and assume that, everybody's smarter than you. And if you're proven wrong, zip it. Just keep your damn mouth shut. All right. Normalcy bias. This is the refusal to plan for or react to a disaster which has never happened before. That's never happened before, the farmer said when his cow died. Yeah, man, of course. But you should, in your mind, propagate out all kinds of scenarios. And they should at least be in the math somewhere. And that's part of your risk reward skew and your tolerance to risk and things like that. Normalcy bias. So this is the bias blind spot. Bias blind spot. And that is the ability to recognize biases in others, but not in ourselves, where you're like, oh, you're suffering from this one. Oh, you have confidence. But listen, we all have all of these to some degree. All of us have all of them. We all got all. So don't be out there like pointing, oh, you're doing this. Yes, great. Well done. We all know we all got a bunch of shit going on in our brains that is keeping us from making rational decisions. Just being aware of it. And also being aware of other people's biases is important as you're trying to like converse with them and communicate and transmit like value propositions and things like that. Like all the world is sales, right? So anyway, yes, you may recognize biases in others, but remember that you also have them. Don't be pointing people out. Let's talk about the just world hypothesis. Just world hypothesis. And this is the belief, and this is a stupid one, the belief that the world is fair and therefore people get what they deserve. Okay, this also kind of feeds into a little bit of the I deserve model, right? Like I am entitled. I am, like you grow up and your mom's like, you can do anything you want when you grow up. In my family, I was like, cool, can I be an astronaut? She's like, no, that's actually a very lofty goal for a janitor. I was like, oh. She's like, you should get good with that mop. I was like, oh, okay. Anyway, the world is not fair. People do not get what they deserve. There's no fundamental fairness principle in mathematics. Opportunity. I mean, we all get some opportunities. We don't all get all opportunities. They're not handed out evenly. Intellect is not handed out evenly, biologically or otherwise. Schooling and friendships and mentorships are not all handed out evenly and fairly. There's not a fair, Poisson distribution of opportunity and chances for joy. Just isn't. You must go and get it. My buddy, his dad is kind of a super redneck, and he was always like, we were training a lot of jujitsu and kickboxing and stuff, and he was like, if the fight ain't fair, you pick something up and make it fair. And it sounds kind of silly and rednecky, but that's true. Like if the economic fight, if the emotional fight, if this battle, if this struggle, we are struggling against people that have inherited money, that have been given money, that given a free pass, that can be corrupt and criminal. That's not fair. No, there's no such thing as fairness. It's a silly human, excusey, whiny concept, right? You pick up something and make it fair. Pick up education, make it fair. Go find a way to make it fair. There you go. And then finally, the base rate fallacy. This is our final one, the base rate fallacy. And this is ignoring general information in favor of very specific cases. So thinking that flying is dangerous because of a recent plane crash, despite the statistics that prove that it's one of the safest modes of transport, period. Right? And yeah, that's true. Fights aren't fair. Not at all. Because what if one person's been training their whole life to put that whooping on you, and you're like, oh yeah, and you're in a bar, and you're like, I'm going to beat this person up for this and that, and they beat your ass. That's a weird example. But you know what I'm saying? You're like, that's not fair. Why? Because you took 15 years of boxing. Yeah, well, maybe you shouldn't have raised that wine glass at me, Stuber. Anyway, I don't think I would have been a great astronaut. I would have been a very dickish, very not fun to live with in a space station astronaut. Because if you're dirty, I'm kind of OCD about dirty people and stuff. I'd be like, hey, you're just going to leave that? You're going to leave that little bag floating around, astronaut Bob? You piece of shit. Clean your area up. I see your toiletries. I saw your little Colgate floating by yesterday. I don't need to see that crap. Freaking dirty astronaut with your Colgate. Anyway, base rate fallacy. Okay, that is it. That is today. Today is done. We will see you tomorrow. We will announce our treat or treat. Stay in school. Don't do drugs. And listen, I didn't curse too much on this one, so we're going to keep this one up. If I curse too much, take them down. Can't have that. Can't have that echoing out into society. Anyway, stay in school, don't do drugs, don't do anything my poor and solvent drunk, strung out on meth grandmother wouldn't do. And as you know, that's very little. You guys are setting up trades. Just think about all of this stuff. Think about these biases and how they affect you. Don't get too caught up in the ups and the downs, and just think a little bit out on the time horizon. Don't drive a race looking in the rearview mirror. Doesn't work out so good.